Right, hello guys, Aura here. This video is going to be a relatively quick rundown of single target priority damage for Retribution Paladins. Now, you've probably come here because you're either pugging or you're part of a group and the single target damage, especially on tyrannical weeks, just isn't quite there. And you've decided, as the Retribution Paladin, that you're going to do something about it. You want to get your group over that line. You want to shave a couple of minutes off a boss fight, or make sure that you can beat a particular ad spawning that's being really problematic, looking at Blightborn or just getting Stitch Flesh down. And the reason I use the Necrotic Wake examples is because this is something that's been specifically requested from a viewer after my Necrotic Wake key, because I did exactly that. I decided that for this key, after talking to my group, that I was going to be the one to funnel. So this is how I do it. Let's get into the talents then, shall we? So, as a lot of you know, the execution build, the 1 minute build, is pretty straightforward. You've got your execution sentence every minute. Now, as a Kyrian, this lines up perfectly with Divine Toll, and this is where our damage is going to start coming into it. Empyrean Power, we don't change that. It's Mythic Plus. You always want your extra Divine Storms. Blade of Wrath just doesn't really cut it. You can, if you really want to eke out single target damage, swap to Blade of Wrath, but over the entire duration of the key, trust me, Empyrean Power will be worth it. It also means that you get a free Holy Power spender during some of your execution sentences, which is great because it's extra damage, it's free damage, and it slaps. Ignore these values here, I was just getting the details up so it's better for you guys to see for when we get into the rotational part. Unbreakable Spirit, you know, I don't really need to go through a lot of these talents because they're discussed in the Mythic Plus Guides videos that I've done previously for consistency. This is just really doubling down on the single target damage. Now, as a Kyrian, we have a new single target legendary on the block, Divine Resonance. We used to use Final Verdict, but unfortunately Final Verdict got peeped to the post, even with Divine Resonance nerf from 30 seconds to 15 seconds. So, as you can see, I have that crafted on my waist, using Versatility Mastery as my two stats, because my haste is being devalued somewhat due to a trinket I have. Remember, your haste breakpoint, shall we say, it's a soft breakpoint, and I use the word loosely, because please remember, Retribution Paladins do not have set stat weights. We care about item level. The only bit of information that may or may not be useful to you is if your haste hits 21%. Because if it hits 21%, you can get an extra global into your execution sentences. I have 18% because my trinket gives me 6% once it at 5 stacks. And when you're in Mythic Plus, you are pretty much in combat constantly. So, pretty much from start to finish, I have this extra haste. So, as a result, Versatility Mastery were my stats of choice for my legendary. Which is fantastic, because Versatility and Mastery both up our damage quite a bit. Versatility is a flat damage increase, whereas Mastery increases our holy damage, which is rather convenient, seeing as our Holy Power spenders, Execution Sentence, Divine Toll, Templar's Verdict, and Divine Storm are all holy. Also, Final Reckoning's holy damage as well. So, the more Mastery you get, the more your burst is going to slap. So, we've discussed about the legendary. We've discussed a little bit about the stats. Now, I will say that because I am a raider, I also have access to the Domination pieces and the Domination sockets. So I have, as of last night's normal raid, I have acquired all of the DPS shards. So I have the Shard of Dyz, Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to insert that joke, guys. So, yeah. Shard of Z. Now, Shard of Z isn't a huge damage increase, but it is one of the ones we will want for M+. Your helpful spells and abilities have a chance to grant your target an unholy aura, which means it can be applied on yourself, draining 250 health from nearby enemies every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. That means you are getting 2,500 damage every whenever this procs per target. Doesn't sound like a lot, but as I said, it's per target, I believe. And it seems to have an internal proc rate of about once a minute. So things like Cavalier, Barp, Lay on Hands, I believe Seraphim as well has also procced it as well. Although I will do a little bit more research into how exactly to proc it and try and get a guide for it, because it's not the most obvious of things. There is then the Shard of Core. Your damage is increased by 2.63% for 20 seconds after attacking an enemy you have not yet damaged. Great for the start of pack polls. So it's just a flat 2.6% damage increase when you go into a pack, which is when we're bursting. And then finally, there is the Shard of Beck, which your damage is increased by 2.6% when you have 50% more health than your target. So this is the Execute Shard, in which once the target gets below 50% health, you're doing more damage to it. In terms of priority shards for M+, in order, you want Core, Beck, Dyz, then you'd probably want to go with Z, and then you're looking at maybe having the final unholy one, or you can go with Rev for the leech, or maybe even Cure if you just want to passive absorb going through. Generally though, it will be off for the speed, which I don't currently have. Thankfully you don't need to worry too much about the actual set, because the bonus essentially for having 3 of the same type of shards equipped doesn't count in M+, it's just the pure shard damage. So into the rotation, because this is the big part of it, and this is going to make or break your single target funnel. So we've got a single target here in front of us, and you can see this add-on I've got. It's Helkily. Now, as I did mention in my Necrotic Wake 16 video, which I will link at the end of this video just above in a card, you will see that I go over this briefly, and that it's to help with your rotational priorities for bursting. Now, we don't have Lust. I do currently have a flask available, but we'll go into this. So it's Arcane Torrent, because I'm a Blood Elf, Judgment, Blade of Wrath, Crusader Strike, Seraphim, Consecration, Crusader Strike, Avengers, Trinket Reckoning, Execution Sentence, Divine Toll, Verdict, Wake, Divine Storm, Judgment, Wrath, Blade, and because it's single target, you're going Final Verdict rather than Execution Sentence. 12k burst without wings, and I could have gone a little bit faster. We didn't have Bloodlust, we didn't have cooldowns, we didn't have anything of that nature. You can see the debuffs and Sinful Revelation that's increasing my damage by 6% to the target there as well. But if we have a quick nosy at the damage and a quick little breakdown, Execution Sentence did 45k single target. Now, that is pretty good. That's, you know, that's above average. But once you've got a Sharpening Stone on, you've got a food buff, and you're able to focus on just going for the target rather than kind of slowing down, trying to talk about it, get everything, because I didn't call out everything that was going through that rotation. You're wanting to basically get as many spenders as physically possible within those 8 seconds. And doing it as quickly as possible between your Final Reckoning and your Execution Sentence, you can line up all that damage into the Final Reckoning buff as well. Because you got to remember, Final Reckoning will buff your execution sentence. It snaps the debuff, or essentially snapshots it. So you get, for execution sentence, if you judgment execution sentence, you will end up execution sentence will take the judgment debuff, therefore doing more damage. But because you've also got Final Reckoning on the target, it will then do more damage on top. And not only that, but then you're funneling as much damage as you can within the Final Reckoning window, so you are just adding to the amount that execution sentence takes, because it takes 20% of the damage taken from your abilities during that time it is on the target. So the more you can pump in during those 8 seconds, the more is going to come out. Because you got to bear in mind, it hit for 45, like this was a normal hit, it wasn't a crit, and it hit for 45k. The tooltip, given my current stats, say it's only supposed to hit for 5.3k holy damage plus 20% of the damage that they took from my abilities in that time. So 20%, right? 20% of the damage I did in that period of time equated to an additional 40,000 damage. You can see where this is starting to get into it. Now, in certain dungeons, you'll be able to pick up a buff. So, Necrotic Wake, you can pick up the Kyrian buff. Or in Spires of Ascension, you can use a spear, which increases the damage that the targets take. Same in Necrotic Wake, if they're hammered or they're javelined, more damage. You've got Sanguine Depths, where you can get the damage buff from the anima containers. You've got targets in Plaguefall that need to die, and you can deal with it and just ignore mechanics. So the first boss in Plaguefall, for instance, you can, if you're bursting at the start, your wings execution sentence pre-bubble. Just flat ignore that knockback. That first Plague Stomp, ignore it. You've got Bloodlust, you've got Wings. If you're running a Priest, hopefully the Priest has PR'd you, because you will get the most benefit out of it in most groups. Because there's not many more groups that will require a PI over you, except maybe the Shadow Priest. But let's not go into that. So now we've got our cooldowns back. I'm not going to talk, and I'm going to see just how much I can pump. And so we got 9k DPS, roughly. And we got a 45k execution sentence dot. So, for the sake of ease, we'll run round. And we'll stop there. Now, you can see by not explaining it to you guys, I hit 10.2k DPS pulling away from that target. The out of combat time has lowered that to below the 9k. But my execution sentence that time still didn't crit, but was just shy of nearly 50,000 damage. Because I was able to just go right and pump. Still the same rotation, just done that little bit faster. And my Templar's Verdicts, like I got a 27k crit Templar's Verdict, which could be higher if I had a little bit more mastery and a little bit more versatility. The Judgments, they were averaging 6k each. Now, I only cast Judgment twice, but I got 11 hits because of both the Divine Toll and me being close enough that those 3 targets were hit. So if you take out those three additional targets, that's 8 hits from 2 casts. Some of those will be from Ring and Clarity. So if we then take, so you've got 2 manual casts, you've then got the 3 from Ring and Clarity. So that brings us up to 5. And then you've got the 3 from Divine Resonance. So it did a total of 55k damage, and if we take, say, 18k off, then you're looking at 35, 36, 37k damage. And the singular execution sentence did 49k, nearly 50k damage on its own. Wake did 23. Final Reckoning did 19. Now, Final Reckoning, if you get a little bit more mastery, is going to hit harder. Like, mine hit for nearly 20k on a single target. Now, imagine that in an AoE situation. Hitting 20k across 4 or 5 targets, but you're just prioritizing into one. Now, that's going to be huge. And that is how I pump so much damage single target. And that's how all Red Paladins will do it. So, hopefully, that brief discussion has helped. And if there's anything else you want to know, like if you want to see this slowed down in another POV, a dungeon or something like that, let me know. Or alternatively, what you can do is you can comment below your channel and maybe upload a video of you playing Retribution Paladin, and if you want, I will go through it with you. Alternatively, you can come to my Discord or catch me on Twitch. I'll put the links of both of those in the description below. In the meantime, though, I hope you have all enjoyed the video. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch you later, folks.